Welcome back. Tonight, we're stepping into the story of a bear who has become synonymous with both childhood wonder and creeping dread. A brown animatronic with a top hat and microphone who stands at the center of one of gaming's most intricate horror narratives. This is the complete lore of Freddy Fazbear, the face of a franchise that has captivated millions, the mascot of a pizzeria chain built on both dreams and nightmares, and a character whose evolution spans decades of tragedy, possession, and reinvention. From the cheerful stages of family restaurants in the early 1980s to the neon-lit corridors of a massive entertainment complex in the 2030s, Freddy Fazbear has worn many faces. He has been the beloved entertainer singing songs for birthday parties, the withered relic stuffed with the body of a murdered child, the nightmarish monster stalking through darkened hallways, the technological marvel designed to kidnap, and even, in one remarkable instance, a genuine hero trying to protect the innocent. Each iteration tells a different chapter in a sprawling story of murder, vengeance, and the blurred line between machine and spirit. Whether you're discovering these details for the first time, letting familiar patterns pull you deeper into contemplation, or simply allowing this narrative to wash over you like a gentle current as you drift toward rest, this exploration will carry you through every documented appearance, every transformation, and every haunting moment that has defined Freddy Fazbear's place in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. We'll trace the line from a simple entertainer to a vessel for supernatural vengeance, examine the technological evolution that transformed friendly animatronics into weapons, and explore how one bear became the enduring symbol of a franchise that refuses to let its mysteries rest quietly in the shadows. Before we begin this journey through decades of lore, through possession and programming, through song and screams, feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of slow, immersive storytelling that unfolds like a dream. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what your first encounter with Freddy Fazbear was. Did you meet him in that first game security office, watching him lurk in the darkness? Or perhaps you encountered one of his many variants first, each one carrying its own particular brand of unease. It's always fascinating to see how different people first stepped into this world, one hushed night at a time. Now, let's begin at the beginning, before Freddy Fazbear even existed, in the early days when two inventors dreamed of bringing joy to children through the magic of animatronic entertainment. The origins. Before Freddy, there was Fredbear. To understand Freddy Fazbear, we must first travel back to the late 1970s and early 1980s, to a time when the animatronic entertainment industry was still finding its footing, when the technology was innovative but dangerous, and when two men named Henry Emily and William Afton decided to build something special together. This was the era of Fredbear's Family Diner, the predecessor to everything that would come after, and the birthplace of the bear who would eventually become Freddy. Henry Emily was the creative genius, the man who understood how to breathe life into metal and wire, how to make machines move with a fluidity that delighted children and impressed adults. He saw animatronics not just as mechanical performers, but as potential friends for children, as magical beings that could bring wonder to birthday parties and create memories that would last lifetimes. His partner, William Afton, handled the business side of things, managing the financial aspects and expansion plans, though beneath his professional facade lurked frustrations and darkness that would eventually poison everything they built together. Their first venture was Fredbear's Family Diner, a cozy establishment that opened its doors in 1983. The restaurant featured two main characters: Fredbear, a golden-coloured bear with a purple top hat and bow tie, and Spring Bonnie, a yellow rabbit companion. These weren't ordinary animatronics, though. They utilized innovative spring-lock technology, a design that allowed the suits to function in two distinct ways. When the spring locks were tightly wound, the internal mechanical components would compress against the sides of the suit, creating space in the center where a human performer could wear the costume and entertain guests directly. When the springs were released, the mechanical parts would expand back into their normal positions, allowing the suit to function as a traditional animatronic. It was brilliant engineering, really, offering unprecedented versatility. A restaurant could use the same character as both a traditional animatronic performer on stage and as a walk-around costume character for more intimate interactions with guests. But this innovation came with a terrible price. The spring-lock mechanisms were extraordinarily sensitive to moisture. Even a small amount of sweat from a human performer or a few drops of water from a spill could cause the locks to loosen and fail. When they failed, the compressed mechanical components would snap back into position with devastating force, crushing anyone trapped inside the suit with metal bars, wiring, and animatronic parts. Employees were given extensive training on how to safely wear the spring-lock suits, with audio cassettes instructing them to wind the locks tightly before entering, to avoid any sudden movements that might jostle the mechanisms, and above all, to keep the suits dry at all costs. But despite these precautions, accidents happened. Workers died, sometimes slowly and agonizingly, as the spring locks pierced their bodies while they remained trapped inside the heavy suits. These tragedies were hushed up, swept under the rug, in the name of keeping the business running, but they planted seeds of unease in the foundation of what would become Fazbear Entertainment. Fredbear's family diner was successful in those early years. Children flocked to see the golden bear and his rabbit friend, their eyes wide with wonder as the animatronics performed songs and entertained crowds. The diner also featured a security puppet, a marionette-like creation designed by Henry to watch over his daughter, Charlotte, keeping her safe while he worked behind the scenes. The puppet was programmed to remain in its music box unless Charlotte's special bracelet detected her leaving the building, at which point it would activate and ensure she stayed within the safe boundaries of the restaurant. But success attracted attention, and attention brought expansion. Fazbear Entertainment began planning a new, larger location called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which would open in 1983 alongside the original diner. This new restaurant would feature an entirely new cast of animatronics: Freddy Fazbear himself, the brown bear who would become the franchise's mascot, Bonnie the bunny, a blue guitarist, Chica the chicken, a yellow bird with a cupcake companion, and Foxy the pirate, a red fox who performed from his own special area called Pirate Cove. This is where Freddy Fazbear first entered the story, distinct from Fredbear despite their similar appearances. While Fredbear was golden with purple accessories and existed in the spring-lock suit format, Freddy Fazbear was brown with black accessories and featured a more traditional animatronic design built on a newer endoskeleton model. He wore a black top hat and bow tie, held a microphone in his right hand, and stood as the leader of his band, positioned at center stage with Bonnie to his left and Chica to his right. According to recent franchise expansions, the designs for these new animatronics appear to have drawn from work done at Murray's Costume Manor. a factory that supplied props and costumes to Fazbear Entertainment. This facility, detailed in newer lore entries, had created early designs for many characters, with artwork by a woman named Fiona, contributing to the look of characters that would appear throughout the franchise's history. Based on what we can piece together, when Fazbear Entertainment began aggressively expanding, they systematically acquired assets from Murray's Costume Manor, poaching employees and obtaining character designs that would be refined into the familiar faces we know today. But something else happened in 1983, something that would forever change the trajectory of both locations. At Fredbear's Family Diner, a tragedy unfolded that would be known as the Bite of '83. A young boy, often called the crying child in the community, had been tormented for days by his older brother Michael and Michael's friends. They would wear masks of the animatronic characters to scare him, locking him in dark rooms and feeding his phobia of the mechanical performers. On the day of the crying child's birthday party at the diner, this cruel teasing reached its terrible conclusion. Michael and his friends, wearing masks of Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy, hoisted the terrified boy toward the stage where Fredbear was performing. As a final prank, they thrust the child's head into Fredbear's mechanical mouth, intending to give him a playful kiss from his fears. But the spring-lock mechanisms in Fredbear's jaw, perhaps triggered by the child's tears or simply by the force of the movement, activated with crushing power. The child's skull was crushed, his head caught in the unyielding grip of metal jaws that had been designed to sing and entertain, but had instead become an instrument of horrific injury. The crying child was rushed to the hospital, where he lingered in a coma for days, surrounded by the plush toys he had always loved, including his beloved Fredbear plush that seemed to speak to him in his fading consciousness. Michael, overwhelmed with guilt, apologized to his dying brother in trembling words, but it was too late. The child slipped away, his final moments accompanied by the flat line of hospital monitors and the ambiguous promise from his Fredbear plush that he would be put back together. The copyright date of 1983 on promotional materials from this era confirms the timing of this tragedy, a moment that would echo through the franchise's entire history. This death, combined with the murder of Charlotte Emily outside Freddy Fazbear's Pizza that same year, led to the closure of Fredbear's Family Diner. The golden animatronics, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, were retired, placed into storage as the company tried to distance itself from the accidents and tragedies. The spotlight shifted entirely to the new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location, where the brown bear and his band would carry forward the dream of family entertainment, even as darkness gathered in the shadows behind the cheerful performances. This was how Freddy Fazbear came into the world, born from innovation and tragedy, stepping into the spotlight just as his golden predecessor stepped back into darkness, ready to become the face of a franchise that would be defined by the terrible juxtaposition between innocent joy and supernatural horror. The stage was set, the lights were bright, and Freddy Fazbear raised his microphone to begin his first song, unaware that he would soon become something far more than just an entertainer. The original Freddy Fazbear, Gabriel's song. When we think of Freddy Fazbear in his most iconic form, we picture the animatronic from the first 5 nights at Freddy's game. The brown bear with a lighter brown stomach and muzzle, standing roughly 6 feet tall with a bulky, sturdy frame that suggested both friendliness and an unsettling heft. His design was simple but effective. A black top hat sat atop his round head, which featured a snout, that protruded forward, giving him a somewhat bear-like profile. His eyes were blue, set in white sockets, and his expression was frozen in a welcoming smile that showed his upper teeth. That black bow tie matched his top hat, and in his right hand he held a microphone, the tool of his trade as the lead singer of the Freddy Fazbear band. On his stomach, you could see lighter coloring that suggested the soft belly of a teddy bear, an attempt to make this mechanical performer seem huggable and non-threatening. His ears were round and articulated, able to move slightly as part of his performance routines. His hands had 4 fingers each, with dark paw pads visible on his palms and fingertips, another touch meant to evoke the image of a friendly cartoon bear. During the day, Freddy Fazbear was exactly what he appeared to be, an entertainer. He would stand on the center stage of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, flanked by Bonnie on his left and Chica on his right, performing songs for birthday parties and restaurant guests. His programming included a repertoire of child-friendly numbers, choreographed movements, and the ability to interact with audiences between performances. Children loved him. He was the star, the mascot, the friendly face that appeared on posters and party supplies throughout the restaurant. But at night, when the restaurant closed and the lights dimmed, Freddy Fazbear became something else entirely. Because Freddy Fazbear, the animatronic entertainer, was also Freddy Fazbear, the haunted prison, the mechanical shell housing the restless spirit of a murdered child named Gabriel. The missing children incident occurred at some point during or around the operation of the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location. While the exact date remains debated within the community, evidence suggests it likely happened around 1985, based on mentions that the original location closed by the end of that year due to issues related to sanitation and a lack of customers following the incident. William Afton, consumed by his dark obsessions and his desire to understand the possession that had occurred when Charlotte Emily's spirit inhabited the security puppet, decided to conduct his own experiment in creating haunted animatronics. He returned to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza wearing the old spring Bonnie suit from the defunct Fredbear's family diner. The yellow rabbit costume was still functional enough to be worn safely if one was careful, and its cheerful, trustworthy appearance made it the perfect disguise for luring children away from the crowds. William moved through the restaurant, using his knowledge of the building's layout to avoid security cameras, exploiting blind spots and safe rooms that existed off the digital map stored in the animatronics programming. He lured 5 children to the back area: Gabriel, Jeremy, Susie, Fritz, and Cassidy. Each child followed the Spring Bonnie character, believing they were being led to a special surprise, or a hidden area where they could see something secret and exciting. Instead, William murdered them one by one, brutally ending their young lives in the concealed safety of the restaurant's back rooms. Then, in an act that was both practical and perverse, he stuffed their bodies into the animatronic suits. Gabriel's body was hidden inside Freddy Fazbear. Jeremy was placed in Bonnie. Susie was stuffed into Chica. Fritz was hidden within Foxy. And Cassidy, the 5th victim, was associated with Golden Freddy, though the exact circumstances of this connection remain somewhat mysterious, as the physical Golden Freddy suit had been retired and was not actively used at the location. The security puppet, the marionette that had failed to save Charlotte Emily when she was murdered outside the restaurant, seemed to possess some awareness of what had happened. In a minigame called Give Gifts, Give Life that appears in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, we see the puppet moving through the restaurant, approaching the four main animatronics and seemingly granting the murdered children a chance at continued existence by allowing their spirits to possess the suits that had become their coffins. This act of mercy or magic ensured that while the children's physical bodies had been destroyed, their consciousness, their selves, continued on within the mechanical performers. But possession came with consequences. The children didn't simply inhabit the animatronics peacefully. Their trauma, their confusion, and their desire for justice warped their existence. Trapped inside metal bodies, unable to clearly remember who they were or what had happened to them, the children's spirits developed animalistic behaviors. They perceived adults as threats, particularly adults who resembled their killer, and they reacted with aggression toward anyone who remained in the restaurant after hours. This is why Freddy Fazbear moved at night. Gabriel's spirit, confused and angry, driven by dim memories of being lured and killed, would emerge from the performance routine that kept him standing still on stage during business hours. He would wander through the darkened restaurant, searching, perhaps for his murderer, perhaps simply trying to understand his new existence, his consciousness flickering between the innocent child he had been and the mechanical vessel he had become. The other signs of possession became apparent quickly. The animatronics began to smell terrible, the odor of decay seeping from within the suits where the children's bodies remained hidden. Liquids began to leak from the animatronic characters, visible stains and moisture that the staff couldn't explain. These were the physical manifestations of the bodies hidden inside, decomposing slowly within their metal prisons. The smell became so bad that it sparked complaints, and combined with the mystery of the missing children, these sanitation issues contributed to the restaurant's terrible reputation. Phone guy, an employee, who recorded training messages for night security guards, mentions in his calls during the first game that the animatronics have been allowed to wander at night as a sort of free roaming mode, supposedly to keep their servos from locking up. But this explanation, while officially sanctioned, doesn't account for the aggressive behavior the animatronics display towards security guards. The real reason they hunt night guards is that Gabriel and the other children perceive these adults as potential threats, or worse, as the man who killed them, unable to distinguish individuals in their confused, possessed state. Freddy's behavior patterns during the night shift are particularly calculated compared to his bandmates. While Bonnie and Chica begin moving early in the night, actively patrolling through the restaurant's various rooms, Freddy remains on stage longer, often waiting until deeper into the shift before beginning his hunt. When he does move, he follows specific paths, traveling through the kitchen where his movements can be heard but not seen on cameras, then making his way to the East Hall and eventually to the security office where the guard sits helplessly watching monitors. His approach is methodical, patient even. Unlike Bonnie's aggressive charging or Chica's persistent presence, Freddy takes his time. He rarely appears directly on camera, often positioning himself in spots where he's just at the edge of the monitor's view. His glowing eyes the only indication of his presence in the darkness. When the power runs out, when the building plunges into complete darkness, and the security doors can no longer be closed, Freddy appears in the office doorway, his eyes glowing in the black, and begins playing his music box tune. The same cheerful melody that accompanies his daytime performances now twisted into a countdown to attack. The possession manifests in other ways too. In certain circumstances, the animatronic's eyes glow in the dark, something that no normal animatronic would do without an active power source. They display coordination that goes beyond simple programming, with Bonnie and Chica seeming to work together to trap the guard between multiple threats. And then there's the question of how they can move with such purpose when, according to Phone Guy, the animatronics are simply in free roaming mode to prevent mechanical issues. The truth, as revealed through the accumulation of evidence across multiple games, is that these are haunted machines. Gabriel and the other children are trapped inside, their spirits bound to the metal and wires through some supernatural or pseudo-scientific process that the franchise never fully explains in concrete terms. What we know is that the possession is real, that the children's spirits give the animatronics a form of awareness and intentionality that mere programming could never achieve, and that this existence is a torment for the children as much as it is a threat to anyone unfortunate enough to encounter them after dark. Freddy's jump scare, when he finally catches the guard, is terrifying in its simplicity. His face lunges toward the camera, filling the screen, his mouth open wide to reveal his inner workings, and for a moment, we see the machine beneath the friendly exterior. Then static, then game over, then the familiar sight of a game over screen showing one of the animatronic's faces looking out at the player. It's implied that Freddy, like the others, attempts to stuff the guard's body into a spare animatronic suit, believing in their confused state that the guard is an endoskeleton, walking around without its costume. The original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza eventually closed due to the accumulation of problems. The missing children incident, even though William Afton was never successfully prosecuted, destroyed the restaurant's reputation. The health code violations stemming from the smell and leaking fluids from the animatronics made the place unbearable, and the danger posed by the animatronics themselves, though never officially acknowledged, must have become increasingly difficult to ignore as more and more night guards quit or disappeared. By the end of 1985, this location had failed. The building was left to rot, its animatronics standing still and silent in the darkness, Gabriel and the other children trapped in their metal prisons with nowhere to go and no way to escape the endless loop of nightly wandering and daytime stillness. Freddy Fazbear stood on his stage, his microphone still clutched in his hand, his programming still ready to launch into song, but his circuits now sharing space with the confused, angry spirit of a murdered child. This was Freddy at his core, a children's entertainer transformed into a prison for the dead, a friendly face concealing unfathomable tragedy, and the mascot of a franchise that had discovered something far more terrifying than jump scares or atmosphere. They had discovered the horror of souls trapped in machines, of childhood innocence corrupted into something capable of violence, and of the terrible question that Gabriel's existence posed. Is it kinder to be dead and at peace, or alive and imprisoned forever in metal? The answer, for Gabriel and the Freddy both, would not come for many years, through many iterations, across fires and more tragedies, and eventually a final confrontation that would perhaps grant them both release. Withered Freddy, time's toll, and protective instincts. By 1987, Fazbear Entertainment had decided to give the franchise another chance. A new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location opened, equipped with state-of-the-art animatronics called the Toy Models that featured advanced facial recognition technology connected to a criminal database. These sleek, modern performers with their glossy plastic shells and child-friendly designs were meant to represent a new era for the company, a clean break from the troubled past of the original location. But what to do with the old animatronics? The company's solution was to keep them, planning to retrofit them with parts to use in the new toy models. The original animatronics, including Freddy, were moved to the new location and placed in the parts and service room, a backstage area where they would serve as parts donors, while the toy animatronics handled the entertainment duties on the main stage. This is where we encounter Withered Freddy, and the descriptor is painfully accurate. The bear, who had once stood proudly at center stage, now showed the ravages of time and neglect. His suit was tattered, with tears visible across his body that exposed the metal endoskeleton underneath. The fur fabric had become matted and dirty, stained with years of use and the unfortunate realities of housing a decomposing body for extended periods. His joints were visibly worn, the mechanisms showing through gaps in the costume. His face bore the worst of the damage. The lower jaw was separated from the upper part of the head, connected only by wires and metal rods, giving him a perpetually slack-jawed appearance that was far more unsettling than his original fixed smile. One of his ears was missing, torn away at some point during the years of service or during the disassembly process when parts were being salvaged for the toy models. His eyes, still that same blue color, stared out from deeper sockets in the degraded mask, and the animatronic endoskeleton head inside was now partially visible through the damaged exterior. The black top hat remained, though it too showed wear, and the bow tie was still present, a strange touch of formality on an otherwise decrepit figure. His stomach was more exposed, showing the mechanical framework beneath where the lighter-colored fabric had torn away. The overall effect was something far more disturbing than the clean appearance he'd had in his original form. Withered Freddy looked like exactly what he was, a machine that had been used hard, abandoned, and left to decay in storage. But despite his deteriorated appearance, Gabriel's spirit still resided within. The possession had not ended just because the animatronic had been damaged or relocated. If anything, the presence of the spirit seemed even more evident in this new location. The withered animatronics would still activate at night, still wander the halls, still pose a threat to the new night guard, Jeremy Fitzgerald, who worked the overnight shifts at this refurbished location. Withered Freddy's movement pattern in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 differed from his behavior in the first game. He would move from the parts and service room through various areas of the building, sometimes appearing in the main hall, sometimes in the prize corner, and eventually making his way toward the office where Jeremy sat monitoring cameras and trying to survive until 6 a.m. His approach was slower than it had been before, perhaps hindered by his damaged mechanisms, but no less determined. The player had to track his movement through the camera system, and when Withered Freddy got too close to the office, the only defense was to put on the Freddy Fazbear mask, a spare costume head that apparently fooled the animatronics into thinking the guard was one of them. This worked most of the time with Withered Freddy, though if you wore the mask for too long while he was in the office, he would eventually see through the deception and attack anyway. His jump scare in this game was even more horrifying than before. His damaged face lunging forward, the separated jaw and exposed machinery creating a visceral image of mechanical malfunction, merging with supernatural menace. But something else emerged about Withered Freddy in this location, something that suggested the spirit of Gabriel retained more humanity than his aggressive nighttime behavior would indicate. In a minigame called Save Them, which appears under certain conditions. In Five Nights at Freddy's 2, we play as Withered Freddy himself, controlling the animatronic, as he moves through a top-down representation of the restaurant. In this minigame, we see the aftermath of another series of murders, 5 dead children lie scattered throughout the restaurant, their pixelated bodies visible on the floor in various rooms. The security puppet is present, calling out "Save them" repeatedly, seemingly directing Freddy to find the bodies, to try to help somehow. As you control Withered Freddy through the building, navigating past obstacles and following the puppet's guidance, you encounter a purple figure, the sprite representation of William Afton, who appears to be responsible for these new murders. When Withered Freddy gets too close to the purple figure, the animatronic suddenly shuts down, the screen going dark with a message that you cannot proceed. The minigame ends with the implication that William has some way to deactivate the animatronics, perhaps through emergency control systems he knows about from his time as a co-founder of the company, or through some technical knowledge that lets him shut down security measures. This minigame is significant because it suggests that Gabriel, despite being trapped in a damaged animatronic body, despite the confusion and aggression that defines his nightly wandering, is still trying to help. He's working with the puppet, Charlotte Emily's spirit, attempting to save other children from William's murders. This protective instinct, this remaining core of heroism in Gabriel's haunted existence, adds a tragic dimension to his story. He's not simply a vengeful spirit lashing out at anyone in reach. He's a child who was murdered, who found himself trapped in a mechanical body, and who, even in that state, tries to stop the same fate from befalling others. The 1987 location operated for only a short time before it too succumbed to tragedy. An incident known as the Bite of 87 occurred during a daytime event with one of the animatronics biting into someone's frontal lobe, causing catastrophic injury. While the exact animatronic responsible remains debated, the incident spelled the end for this location and led to strict rules about animatronics being confined to the stage during daytime performances. The toy animatronics, which had also become possessed by the spirits of William's latest victims, were slated for scrapping due to their possible role in the incident and their increasingly dangerous behavior. But the withered animatronics, the original Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, were kept. The company decided to refurbish them, to repair the damage and restore them to working condition for yet another attempt at making Freddy Fazbear's Pizza successful. So Withered Freddy underwent reconstruction. His damaged suit was repaired, new fabric covering the tears and making him presentable again. His missing ear was replaced. His separated jaw was reattached properly. The grime was cleaned away, and fresh paint was applied where needed. When the renovation was complete, he looked much like he had in his original form, though perhaps not quite as pristine as he'd been when first built. This refurbished Freddy would go on to appear in the next attempt at operating Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the location we see in the first 5 nights at Freddy's game. So in a way, Withered Freddy and the original Freddy from FNAF 1 are the same animatronic, just at different points in his physical timeline. Gabriel's spirit remained throughout all of this, from pristine entertainer to withered relic, to refurbished performer, bound to the metal that had become his tomb. The withered era of Freddy's existence showed us several important things. It showed that possession wasn't dependent on the animatronic being in good condition, that the spirits remained even when the machines fell into disrepair. It showed that Gabriel's spirit, despite the aggression it displayed towards security guards, still retained enough humanity to try to help other children, to work with the puppet in attempting to save potential victims. And it showed the company's disturbing willingness to keep using the same animatronics despite knowing something was wrong with them. despite the mounting evidence that these machines were dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with mechanical failure. Withered Freddy stands as a physical representation of time's passage, of how the bright dreams of 1983 had degraded into the tattered reality of 1987. He was a monument to neglect, both of the machines themselves and of the children whose bodies and spirits had been hidden inside them, forgotten by a company more interested in the next revenue opportunity than in acknowledging the horrors that had occurred in their restaurants. Toy Freddy, the modernization of mascot and malice, while withered, Freddy sat in the parts and service room, stripped for parts and relegated to backstage. Status: the spotlight in the 1987 location belonged to a new version of the bear, Toy Freddy. This was the modern iteration, the technological upgrade, a shiny new model that represented Fazbear Entertainment's attempt to distance itself from the tragedies of the past through the power of better design and enhance safety features. Toy Freddy looked significantly different from his withered predecessor. Where the original Freddy had a somewhat rough, utilitarian appearance, Toy Freddy was sleek and polished. His suit was made of glossy plastic material rather than a fabric, giving him a smooth, clean appearance that seemed more advanced and less prone to wear. His coloring was a brighter brown, almost orange in certain lights, with a rosy pink blush on his cheeks that made him look more cartoon-like and friendly. His proportions were also different. Toy Freddy had a rounder, less imposing build compared to the original. His head was larger in proportion to his body, with bigger eyes that featured a more innocent, wide-eyed expression. Those eyes were blue with black pupils, and unlike the original Freddy's somewhat hollow gaze, Freddy's eyes had a sparkle to them, a deliberate attempt to make him look more appealing to children. The black top hat and bow tie remained, maintaining the connection to his predecessor's iconic look. His stomach bore the same lighter coloring, and he still held a microphone, though this microphone was built into his hand rather than being a separate prop. His fingers had visible articulation, showing the advanced mechanisms that allowed for more complex hand movements during performances. On his chest, 2 black buttons were visible, another callback to the classic design, but rendered in the cleaner, more modern aesthetic. But the most important upgrade in Toy Freddy wasn't visible to the naked eye. Like all the toy animatronics, he was equipped with advanced facial recognition technology linked to a criminal database. The system was designed to scan the faces of adults in the restaurant and cross-reference them against a database of criminal records, supposedly to identify predators and prevent incidents like the missing children incident from happening again. If the system detected a match to someone in the criminal database, it would alert staff, theoretically allowing security to intervene before any harm could occur. It was a reasonable idea in theory, a technological solution to a human problem. But in practice, it introduced new complications, especially once the toy animatronics became possessed. The possession of the toy models occurred during the short operational period of the 1987 location. William Afton, still free despite suspicions about his involvement in the missing children incident, returned to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza once again. Phone Guy's messages to Jeremy Fitzgerald mentioned that someone had been using an old yellow suit from the back, presumably the spring Bonnie costume, and that this had led to the animatronics behaving strangely. During this time, 5 more children were murdered. We see their bodies in the Save Them minigame, lying throughout the restaurant as the security puppet desperately tries to reach them, to grant them the same possession that had kept the original 5 victim spirits alive. These new victim spirits entered the toy animatronics, including Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, and others, giving the modern machines the same supernatural awareness that haunted their older counterparts. But something was different about the toy animatronics' possession. Where the original animatronics seemed confused and animalistic in their behavior, the toy models displayed behaviors that seemed more overtly malicious, more aware. Their eyes would glow white at night, an obviously supernatural phenomenon. They moved with purpose and coordination that suggested conscious planning rather than mere wandering. And most troublingly, their facial recognition systems, meant to protect children, now seemed to be working in reverse. Toy Freddy and the other toys became aggressive toward adults after hours, but not in the blind, confused way of the original animatronics. The facial recognition technology appeared to have been corrupted or repurposed by the possessing spirits. Instead of identifying criminals, the system now identified any adult as a potential threat, as someone who might be the murderer returning to the scene. The spirits were using the very technology meant to prevent harm as a weapon to identify and attack anyone they perceived as dangerous. During Jeremy Fitzgerald's night shifts, Toy Freddy would appear in various locations throughout the restaurant. Unlike Withered Freddy, who moved slowly from the back rooms, Toy Freddy could appear quickly, his movements facilitated by the more advanced mechanisms in his newer body. He would show up in the hallway outside the office, standing perfectly still in the darkness, his glowing eyes the only indication of his presence. The Freddy mask trick worked on Toy Freddy just as it worked on most of the animatronics. When he appeared in the office, Jeremy could put on the spare Freddy head, and Toy Freddy would be fooled into thinking the guard was just another animatronic. He would stare for a moment, his head tilting slightly as if studying the mask, and then he would leave, returning to his wandering through the restaurant. But if you didn't put the mask on quickly enough, or if you lowered it too soon, Toy Freddy would attack, his plastic face lunging forward with surprising speed for a jump scare that ended the night. The Bite of 87, which occurred during this period, has been the subject of much speculation regarding which animatronic was responsible, though the exact culprit remains unconfirmed. What the games establish is that during a daytime event, one of the animatronics bit into someone's frontal lobe, causing severe injury. The victim survived, as Phone Guy mentions, that it's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe. But the incident was catastrophic for the restaurant's already damaged reputation. In the aftermath, Fazbear Entertainment made the decision to scrap the toy animatronics entirely. They were deemed too dangerous to refurbish, too unpredictable to trust, and too associated with the incident to continue using. So Toy Freddy, along with his fellow toy models, was disassembled. The facial recognition systems were removed and presumably destroyed. The advanced mechanisms were stripped down. The glossy plastic shells were broken apart. For the spirits possessing the toy animatronics, this disassembly likely meant freedom, their connection to the physical form severed when the machines were destroyed. But it also meant that their brief existence as possessed animatronics ended violently, torn apart just as they had been murdered, their mechanical bodies proving no more permanent than their original flesh. Toy Freddy's story is shorter than that of the original Freddy, but it's significant for what it shows about the evolution of the franchise's horror. The toy models represented an attempt to make the animatronics safer, cleaner, more advanced. But technology couldn't solve the problem of supernatural possession. In fact, The advanced systems in the toy animatronics seem to make them more dangerous once possessed, giving the spirits new tools to use in their confused attempts at justice or vengeance. The contrast between Toy Freddy and Withered Freddy, both present in the same location, highlights a central theme in Five Nights at Freddy's. No amount of modernization or redesign can escape the fundamental horror of what these animatronics represent. New paint and better technology can't hide the fact that children died, that spirits linger, and that Fazbear Entertainment's attempts to move forward are constantly undermined by the past they refuse to properly acknowledge or address. Toy Freddy was meant to be the face of a new era. Instead, he became another victim, another haunted machine, another chapter in the ongoing tragedy that was Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And when the scrapping was done, when the parts were disposed of and the location was closed, Fazbear Entertainment once again turned to the originals, refurbishing Withered Freddy and his companions for yet another attempt at making their blood-stained dream of family entertainment succeed. Golden Freddy, the vengeful spirit that defies physics. Among all the versions of Freddy that exist in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, none is more mysterious, more supernatural, or more terrifying than Golden Freddy. This entity, first appearing as a rare Easter egg in the original game and gradually revealing its significance across multiple entries in the franchise, represents something fundamentally different from the other animatronics. While Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy are ghosts trapped in machines, Golden Freddy seems to exist as pure spirit, a phantom that can manifest and dematerialize at will, unbound by the physical limitations that constrain his counterparts. Golden Freddy's appearance is immediately striking and deeply unsettling. He resembles Freddy Fazbear in basic shape and structure, but with several key differences. His coloring is a dull yellow or golden hue, though the exact shade varies between appearances, sometimes seeming more vibrant and sometimes appearing faded and dirty, as if the golden fur has been weathered by time. His accessories, the top hat and bow tie, are black like the original Freddy's, but there's something lifeless about him, something that suggests this isn't just a different color scheme, but a fundamentally different kind of entity. In the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, Golden Freddy appears as a slumped figure, sitting directly in the office with the player. There's no walking animation, no gradual approach through the cameras. One moment the office is empty, except for the desk and equipment, and the next moment, Golden Freddy is there, materializing impossibly. His body collapsed in a sitting position that no animatronic endoskeleton could naturally achieve. His head hangs forward, his arms rest limply at his sides, and most disturbingly, his eyes are completely black voids, empty sockets that stare at nothing. When Golden Freddy appears, there's no time to react, no defense to employ. The screen goes black almost immediately, and the game crashes, forcing a restart. It's the only death in the game that doesn't follow the standard pattern, the only encounter that breaks the fourth wall by actually crashing the program. This, more than anything else, establishes Golden Freddy as something different, something that doesn't play by the same rules as the other animatronics. In Five Nights at Freddy's 2, Golden Freddy appears in his withered form, and here we get more details about his physical appearance. His suit is heavily damaged, perhaps even more so than Withered Freddy's. Large portions of his head are missing, exposing the endoskeleton beneath. His lower jaw is completely separated, hanging loosely, and one of his ears is torn away. His body, when he manifests, shows similar damage, with exposed metal frame and tattered golden fur. But what's most important about Withered Golden Freddy is that he still behaves like a ghost rather than a physical animatronic. He can appear in the office just like in the first game, materializing without warning. The Freddy mask defense works on him, but only if you're quick enough. And even then, there's something disturbing about how he fades away when fooled, as if he's choosing to leave rather than being genuinely tricked. The lore reveals that Golden Freddy is possessed by a child named Cassidy, though this name only appears explicitly in later games and supplementary materials. Cassidy was one of William Afton's victims, likely the fifth child killed during the missing children incident, though some interpretations suggest there may have been a sixth victim that complicates the count. What makes Cassidy's possession different is its connection to the Golden Freddy or Fredbear suite, which had been retired and wasn't in active use at the time of the murders. One interpretation, drawn from various story elements and gameplay hints, suggests that Cassidy's death was particularly traumatic, possibly involving being placed into the old Fredbear springlock suit and suffering as the mechanisms failed, leading to a prolonged and agonizing death. If true, this extreme trauma could explain why Cassidy's spirit manifests differently from the others, why Golden Freddy seems more powerful and less bound by physical limitations. But Golden Freddy's story becomes truly significant in Ultimate Custom Night, a game that serves as a kind of purgatory or personal hell for William Afton. In this game, Golden Freddy appears not once, but in multiple forms, and dialogue suggests that Cassidy is the one orchestrating this torment. The phrase, "the one you should not have killed," appears in connection with Golden Freddy, suggesting that Cassidy holds a special grudge, a deeper rage than the other victims. Some interpretations of the lore suggest that Cassidy refused to move on even after the other spirits were freed. When Henry Emily enacted his plan in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, setting fire to the restaurant to release the trapped souls, most of the children accepted peace and moved on to their happiest day, a metaphorical release shown in minigames where the children's spirits are finally able to rest. But Cassidy, driven by an overwhelming need for vengeance, kept William Afton trapped in a nightmare loop, using Golden Freddy as a vessel to torture him endlessly. In Ultimate Custom Night, Golden Freddy appears as one of the office animatronics, and his mechanic is suitably terrifying. A poster on the wall will occasionally change to show Golden Freddy's face, and if you look at it too long, he'll appear in the office, killing you instantly. The only way to prevent this is to constantly change the camera feed, never letting your view rest on that poster for more than a moment. It's a mechanic that requires constant vigilance, never allowing you to settle into a comfortable pattern, much like how Cassidy's vengeful spirit never allows William Afton any rest. The voice lines associated with Golden Freddy in Ultimate Custom Night are chilling. "It's me," he says, repeating the phrase that appeared throughout the original game. The simplicity of this statement carries weight when you realize it's Cassidy identifying themselves to William, reminding him of the child he killed. Other lines suggest awareness of the hell they've created. "Let's see how many times you can be pulled apart and put back together," referencing the endless loop of death and resurrection that William experiences in this nightmare. Golden Freddy's connection to Fredbear adds another layer to his significance. Fredbear was the original, the golden bear from Fredbear's Family Diner, the character that represented the beginning of the franchise. By manifesting as a golden version of Freddy, Cassidy's spirit connects to that origin point, to the very first tragedy that set everything in motion, the bite of 83 that killed the crying child. Some theories even suggest that Cassidy and the crying child might share Golden Freddy, two spirits inhabiting the same form, though this remains debated within the community. What's undeniable is that Golden Freddy represents the most supernaturally powerful manifestation in the franchise. While other animatronics are ghosts trapped in physical shells, limited by mechanical bodies even as they're driven by supernatural awareness, Golden Freddy exists primarily as spirit, with only a tenuous connection to physical form. He can appear and disappear at will. He can manifest in multiple places. He can crash reality itself, breaking the game's code just by existing in a space where he shouldn't be able to exist. This makes Golden Freddy perhaps the most tragic figure in the entire franchise. Cassidy was murdered, like the others, and found themselves trapped just like Gabriel, Jeremy, Susie, and Fritz. But Cassidy's possession took a different form, perhaps because their death was even more traumatic, perhaps because their spirit was stronger, or perhaps because the Golden Freddy suit itself, being retired and gathering dust, rather than actively performing, created different conditions for possession. And while the other children eventually found peace, moving on to their metaphorical happiest day, Cassidy chose vengeance over rest. They kept William Afton trapped in torment, orchestrating an eternal nightmare using Golden Freddy as the primary instrument of torture. But in doing so, Cassidy also trapped themselves, bound to William's suffering, unable to let go, unable to rest, perpetually existing in a state of rage and hurt. Based on various story elements and the minigames, it appears that through intervention, possibly from the crying child, who some interpret as helping Cassidy finally let go, Golden Freddy might finally find rest. In a minigame from FNAF World, we see what appears to be the crying child's spirit talking to Cassidy, represented by a peaceful lake where Cassidy can finally rest, finally leave the demon to his demons, and allow themselves peace at last. Golden Freddy is the spirit that wouldn't die, the rage that couldn't be appeased, and the victim who became something approaching a cosmic force in their pursuit of justice. Of all the forms Freddy has taken, this one is the most purely supernatural, the most divorced from the mechanical origins of the animatronics, and perhaps the most human in the depth of emotion it represents. Because Cassidy's Golden Freddy isn't just scary because of jump scares or because of how he appears. He's scary because he represents hurt so deep it transcends death, pain so profound it warps reality, and the terrible question of whether vengeance can ever truly heal the wounds left by murder. Shadow Freddy, the purple apparition of the Follow Me. In the darker corners of the Five Nights at Freddy's lore, where speculation blends with sparse details and mysterious appearances raise more questions than they answer, exists an entity known as Shadow Freddy. Unlike the possession-driven animatronics, or even the supernatural Golden Freddy, Shadow Freddy is something else entirely, an apparition whose true nature and purpose remain subjects of intense debate, even as his role in the franchise's most pivotal moments becomes clearer. Shadow Freddy first appeared in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 as a rare Easter egg, much like Golden Freddy, though his appearance was even more obscure. In the parts and service room, where Withered Freddy and the other damaged animatronics sat waiting to be cannibalized for parts, players could occasionally see a figure sitting in Withered Freddy's spot. At first glance, it looked like Golden Freddy in his withered form, slumped in the same characteristic sitting position. But when the image was brightened, revealing details hidden in the darkness, the truth became apparent. This figure wasn't golden at all. It was purple. Shadow Freddy appeared as a dark purple version of Withered Golden Freddy, with the same slumped posture, the same damaged appearance, and the same eyeless sockets. Unlike the other animatronics, he didn't attack when he appeared. He would simply manifest in that spot, sitting silently, and if you changed camera views or looked away and back, he would be gone. His presence was eerie but harmless, at least in this initial appearance, raising immediate questions about what he represented and why he existed. Theories sprang up immediately. Some suggested Shadow Freddy might be the ghost of an employee who died in a spring lock failure while wearing the Fredbear suit, a parallel to the theory about Shadow Bonnie representing someone who died in a Spring Bonnie springlock accident. This would explain the purple coloring, as purple has long been associated with death and spirits in the Five Nights at Freddy's visual language. The purple figure that appears in minigames representing William Afton uses the same color to indicate something related to death and murder. But Shadow Freddy's true significance became clear in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, in a series of minigames that played between nights. These minigames, simple 8-bit representations of the events, showed what happened when William Afton returned to the abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, years after its closure. In the Follow Me minigames, players controlled the four main animatronics, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, one after another, following a purple figure who would lead them to the safe room before William would ambush and dismantle them. But here's where it gets interesting. That figure leading the animatronics wasn't William himself. Looking closely at the sprite, it was clearly Shadow Freddy, the purple bear, not Spring Bonnie, or William's purple human form. Shadow Freddy was shown deliberately luring the possessed animatronics, one by one, to the safe room where William could destroy them. This raises profound questions about Shadow Freddy's nature and allegiance. Was he working with William Afton? Was this entity, whatever it was, actively helping the murderer dismantle the animatronics and potentially release the spirits within? Or was there a more complex plan at work? Within the community, several interpretations have emerged. Some suggest that Shadow Freddy might actually be the puppet in disguise, or at least the puppet using Shadow Freddy's form to lead the animatronics. The puppet, possessed by Charlotte Emily, had always been portrayed as a protective figure trying to help the murdered children. This reading would suggest the puppet used Shadow Freddy's appearance, something the animatronics would recognize and follow to lead them to William for a final confrontation. This could explain why the puppet doesn't appear in the Follow Me minigames directly, but is shown later confronting William. Another interpretation connects Shadow Freddy to the crying child, Michael Afton's brother, who died in the bite of '83. Supporting this reading is the fact that Nightmare, the final boss of Five Nights at Freddy's 4, is described in game files as Shadow Freddy or Nightmare Shadow Freddy. Nightmare appears as a translucent, skeletal version of Nightmare Fredbear, with the same color scheme that Shadow Freddy exhibits. If we consider that the crying child spirit might have some connection to Fredbear or Golden Freddy, it's conceivable his trauma could have manifested as this shadowy nightmare version. A third theory, rooted in earlier franchise speculation, suggests Shadow Freddy might be the apparition of an employee who died in a springlock failure while wearing the Fredbear suit. This would parallel theories about Shadow Bonnie representing someone who died in a Spring Bonnie springlock accident, and would explain the purple coloring, as purple has long been associated with death and spirits in the Five Nights at Freddy's visual language. regardless of which interpretation holds truth. Shadow Freddy's actions in the Follow Me minigames directly led to William Afton's demise. By luring the animatronics to the safe room, Shadow Freddy ensured they would be in position when William dismantled them. And once the animatronics were destroyed, the spirits within were freed from their mechanical prisons, able to manifest as ghosts and confront their murderer directly. When William, cornered by the vengeful spirits of the children he'd killed, retreated into the Spring Bonnie suit for protection, it was Shadow Freddy's plan, if plan it was, that had created the circumstances for this confrontation. The spring locks failed, moisture from the leaking ceiling or William's terrified breathing causing them to snap, and William was crushed inside the suit, beginning his own torment as Springtrap. So Shadow Freddy, operating under whatever mysterious influence guided him, became instrumental in bringing William's murders full circle. The purple apparition that had seemed so mysterious, so purposeless, had actually been setting up the most important moment in the franchise's narrative. The moment when the killer became trapped just as his victims had been trapped. In later games, Shadow Freddy makes few, if any, appearances, his role seemingly complete once William was spring-locked. But his presence in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, where the character Max is killed by Freddy's shadow in a clever visual trick that nods to Shadow Freddy's existence, suggests that this mysterious entity hasn't been entirely forgotten by the franchise's creators. What Shadow Freddy ultimately represents is one of the great mysteries of Five Nights at Freddy's lore. Is he a separate spirit? A manifestation of someone's trauma or pain? A tool used by the puppet, or another entity to carry out a plan? Or perhaps something even stranger, a glitch in the supernatural systems that govern possession and haunting in this universe? What we can say with certainty is that Shadow Freddy, despite his rare appearances and mysterious nature, played a crucial role in the franchise's central narrative. He was the lure that brought the animatronics to their destruction, which in turn led to William's spring-locking, which set up everything that followed. In a franchise full of hidden motives and unclear allegiances, Shadow Freddy might be the most enigmatic figure of all, a purple ghost whose 3 or 4 appearances across multiple games hint at depths of story that we may never fully understand. Nightmare Freddy, the monster, under the bed and his miniature terrors. When Five Nights at Freddy's 4 released, it took the franchise in a dramatically different direction, shifting from the security camera-based gameplay of the previous entries to something far more intimate and psychologically intense. Instead of monitoring animatronics through screens in a security office, players found themselves in a child's bedroom, moving between doors, closets and beds, listening to breathing sounds and watching for subtle movements in the darkness. And among the terrifying nightmare creatures that stalked those hallways, none was more unsettling than Nightmare Freddy and his miniature companions, the Freddles. Nightmare Freddy represents the bear at his most monstrous, stripped of any pretense of friendliness or entertainment value. His design is aggressive, exaggerated, meant to embody pure horror rather than the uncanny valley unsettledness of the earlier animatronics. He stands tall, his posture hunched slightly forward as if ready to lunge. His body is a deep brown color, but it's a filthy, dark brown that suggests decay and rot rather than the warm chocolate tones of the original Freddy. The most immediately striking feature is his teeth. Nightmare Freddy's mouth is filled with long, sharp, needle-like fangs, far more numerous and threatening than the squared-off teeth of earlier models. These teeth are tinted red at the tips, adding a suggestion of blood or rust that makes them even more disturbing. When his mouth opens in his jump scare, you can see rows of these fangs, creating the impression that being bitten by this creature would be less a mechanical malfunction and more like being attacked by some kind of mechanical bear-monster hybrid. His hands have been transformed into something approaching claws, with long, sharp fingers tipped with pointed ends that look capable of tearing through flesh. The black top hat and bow tie remain, a strange holdover from the original design that makes his horrifying appearance even more surreal, as if someone had taken a child's entertainer and corrupted it into something from a nightmare. But the most distinctive feature of Nightmare Freddy isn't his own appearance, it's the three smaller creatures attached to his body, the Freddles, also called Mini Freddys. These tiny animatronic heads, each about the size of a soccer ball, resemble miniature versions of Nightmare Freddy himself, complete with their own sharp teeth and glowing eyes. They cling to Nightmare Freddy's body, positioned on his shoulders and stomach, like parasitic offspring or manifestations of his multiplying horror. During gameplay, the Freddles play a crucial role in Nightmare Freddy's mechanic. As you navigate the bedroom environment, checking doors and closets and listening for breathing, the Freddles will begin appearing on your bed behind you. You can't see them accumulate in real time. They simply appear when you're not looking, one by one gathering on the bedspread. If you turn around and shine your flashlight on the bed, you can see them there, tiny monstrous bear heads sitting and waiting. If you allow 3 Freddles to accumulate on the bed without checking it and scaring them away with your flashlight, they summon Nightmare Freddy himself. The full-size Nightmare Bear will appear behind you, and if you turn around, he'll immediately attack with a jump scare that ends your night. The mechanic creates constant tension, forcing you to regularly turn away from the doors you're defending to check the bed, creating openings for other animatronics to advance. The Freddles themselves are more than just a gameplay mechanic. They're disturbing on a conceptual level. They move independently when they need to, crawling or somehow transporting themselves to the bed, but they also cling to Nightmare Freddy as if they're part of him. Are they separate entities or extensions of Nightmare Freddy's horror? Are they meant to represent how fears multiply and accumulate, starting small but building to overwhelming presence? The lore explanation for Nightmare Freddy and the other Nightmare animatronics has evolved over time. Initially, when Five Nights at Freddy's 4 was released, many within the community interpreted these as literal nightmares, hallucinations experienced by the crying child after the bite of 83 as he lay dying in his hospital bed. The minigames between nights showed his torment leading up to the birthday party tragedy, and the nights themselves seemed to represent his fear-soaked dreams as his damaged brain tried to process trauma. But later games, particularly Sister Location, provided evidence suggesting the nightmares might have been more than just dreams. A secret room accessed with a code showing 1983 revealed cameras displaying the bedroom from Five Nights at Freddy's 4 and the Fun with Plush Trap area. More significantly, the map showed the layout of underground facilities connected to the bedroom, implying that the nightmare experiences might have been part of some kind of experiment. More concrete explanations emerged from Tales from the Pizzaplex, specifically the story Dittophobia. In this narrative, a boy named Rory experiences the nightmare animatronics for years, trapped in a facility where he's subjected to fear experiments using hallucinogenic gas. The gas makes old, crude animatronic endoskeletons and plastic mannequins appear as the terrifying nightmare creatures, with the sophisticated design being an illusion created by the chemical-induced hallucinations. According to this interpretation, William Afton had created this testing facility to study fear, possibly as part of his attempts to recreate or understand the possession phenomenon, or perhaps as experiments to understand agony and its effects on the human mind. Children were placed in this facility and subjected to the nightmare animatronics night after night, their fear measured and studied, while hallucinogenic gases warped their perception of reality. If this explanation holds, then Nightmare Freddy and the Freddles weren't supernatural entities at all, but rather the horrifying appearance that crude animatronic frameworks took on when viewed through the filter of hallucinogenic fear gas. The Freddles might have been smaller endoskeleton heads, or even just pieces of equipment that the drugged mind interpreted as miniature monsters. This interpretation makes Nightmare Freddy perhaps even more disturbing than if he were supernatural. He represents manufactured trauma, deliberately created terror used as an experimental tool on children. The fact that he looks the way he does, with those sharp teeth and aggressive stance and parasitic Freddles, isn't because some spirit manifested that appearance, but because William Afton specifically designed the experience to be as traumatizing as possible for his test subjects. The question of whether Michael Afton, the older brother who survived his childhood traumas, experienced these nightmares as part of his own guilt, induced hallucinations, or whether he too was subjected to his father's experiments, remains open to interpretation. The logbook and various story elements suggest multiple possible readings. What we can establish is that Nightmare Freddy represents Freddy Fazbear stripped of all pretense, reduced to pure fear, a monster that exists solely to terrify. In Ultimate Custom Night, Nightmare Freddy appears again, and here we get voice lines that give him some personality beyond just being a monster. He speaks in a low, gravelly, robotic voice, with lines like, "I am given flesh to be your tormentor," and "I am remade, but not by you, by the one you should not have killed." These lines suggest awareness, a sense of purpose, and confirmation that in Ultimate Custom Night's context, he exists as part of the punishment being inflicted on William Afton, another instrument in Cassidy's orchestra of vengeance. Nightmare Freddy and his Freddles stand as perhaps the most overtly horrifying version of the character, a creature designed not to entertain or even to kill for confused reasons of possession, but purely to inspire terror. Whether that terror was supernatural or induced through technological means doesn't ultimately matter to the victims who experienced it. The nightmare was real to them, and Nightmare Freddy was the monster at its center, a perversion of the friendly bear mascot that showed just how far into darkness the Freddy Fazbear concept could descend. Funtime Freddy, the sinister showman, and his hand puppet partner. If Nightmare Freddy represented Freddy as a creature of pure fear, Funtime Freddy showed us something arguably more disturbing. Freddy as a deliberately designed weapon, an animatronic built from the ground up with child murder as a core function. Appearing in Five Nights at Freddy's sister location, Funtime Freddy marked a departure from possessed animatronics and hallucination-induced nightmares into the realm of William Afton's deliberate technological horror. Funtime Freddy's design immediately sets him apart from any previous version of the character. Where other Freddys were brown with black or purple accessories, Funtime Freddy is primarily white with purple accents. His suit appears to be made of segmented plastic plates, a more advanced design that allows for greater articulation and more complex movements. These faceplates can open, revealing the endoskeleton head beneath, a feature that adds an extra layer of mechanical uncanniness to his appearance. His stomach and muzzle are a light purple color, and his eyes are a striking bright blue. He wears a black bow tie with matching buttons on his chest, and a purple striped top hat sits on his head, echoing the color scheme of Fredbear. His left hand holds a purple microphone, maintaining the entertainer aesthetic. But his right hand, that's where things get interesting, because Funtime Freddy doesn't have a right hand. Instead, his right arm ends in a hand puppet named Bon-Bon. Bon-Bon is a miniature version of Bonnie the Rabbit, blue with pink accents on his muzzle, stomach, and inner ears. He has his own bow tie and a single button on his chest. Unlike normal hand puppets, Bon-Bon is a fully functional miniature animatronic who can detach from Funtime Freddy's arm and move independently when needed. He has his own will, his own voice, higher pitched and more feminine than Funtime Freddy's energetic tones, and his own role to play in the Funtime duo's horrifying purpose. That purpose becomes clear when examining Funtime Freddy's blueprints and understanding the history of Circus Baby's entertainment and rental, the facility where he operates. After the failure of Circus Baby's Pizza World, where William's daughter Elizabeth was killed by the Circus Baby animatronics child capture mechanism, William established a rental service for the Funtime animatronics. During the day, they would be rented out for private parties. At night, they would return to the underground facility beneath William's property. But the Funtimes weren't just entertainers. Examining Funtime Freddy's blueprint reveals his true capabilities: a proximity sensor for grouping coordination, allowing him to herd multiple children together; parental tracking through Bon-Bon's sensors, capable of scanning a 360-degree radius to locate targets; voice mimicry, letting him imitate voices to lure children; and most horrifyingly, a storage tank in his chest cavity, accessed through a claw mechanism hidden behind his chest plates. This storage tank was designed to capture and contain children, stuffing them into Funtime Freddy's torso where they would die, likely from suffocation or crushing, their bodies held inside the animatronic until William could retrieve them for whatever purpose his experiments required. It's the same technology that killed Elizabeth when she approached Circus Baby seeking ice cream. But in Funtime Freddy's case, it was part of a coordinated system where multiple Funtime animatronics could capture multiple children from a single event. Funtime Freddy's personality, as revealed through his voice lines and behavior, is manic and energetic, almost childlike in his enthusiasm, which makes him all the more disturbing. When he speaks, his voice glitches and stutters slightly, a mechanical affectation that emphasizes his artificial nature. "Bon-Bon, go get him," he shouts, dispatching his puppet companion to attack. "Hey, birthday boy, I think I see the birthday boy over there," he calls out, his playful tone hiding deadly intent. In Sister Location's gameplay, specifically Night 2 in the breaker room, players must deal with Funtime Freddy while rebooting power systems. He advances from his stage, drawn by the noise and activity, and the only way to keep him at bay is to play mascot response audio, which turns out to be Bon-Bon's voice telling Funtime Freddy to calm down and assuring him that everything is okay. This reveals an interesting dynamic. Bon-Bon appears to have been designed specifically to manage Funtime Freddy's aggressive tendencies, a built-in control mechanism to keep the larger animatronic calm during events. On Night 3, players must perform maintenance on Funtime Freddy, opening his faceplates and chest cavity. During this process, Bon-Bon detaches from Funtime Freddy's arm and begins moving independently, slowly rising behind Freddy's body if you don't keep the flashlight on him. If you fail to press Bon-Bon's reboot button in time, the tiny puppet will jump scare you, his small mouth opening wide to reveal sharp teeth, attacking with a ferocity that belies his miniature size. The lore strongly suggests that Funtime Freddy, like the other Funtimes, may have been injected with Remnant, the supernatural substance created by melting down possessed animatronics. Based on evidence scattered throughout the games, William Afton, after dismantling the original animatronics in the abandoned Freddy Fazbear's pizza, appears to have extracted their endoskeletons and melted them down, creating remnant that contained fragments of the murdered children's spirits. This remnant was then injected into the Funtime animatronics using a device called the Scooper, infusing them with supernatural properties. Whether Gabriel's spirit from the original Freddy was specifically in Funtime Freddy, or whether the remnant was a mixed amalgamation of all 5 original victims, remains unclear. What the games do establish is that Funtime Freddy possessed some level of consciousness beyond his programming, some awareness that could have come from the remnant's influence. This consciousness became more prominent when Funtime Freddy became part of Enard, the amalgamation of all the Funtime animatronics that scooped Michael Afton and wore his body as a disguise to escape the underground facility. After ejecting Circus Baby from their combined form, the remaining Funtimes, dominated by Funtime Freddy's consciousness, became Molten Freddy. Molten Freddy appears in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator as a twisted mass of wires and animatronic parts, primarily colored with Funtime Freddy's white and purple, but stripped down to an almost abstract form. His mask, recognizable as Funtime Freddy's face, peers out from the tangle of cables, and his voice, now even more distorted and glitchy, calls out through the building's ventilation system. But where Funtime Freddy had been manic and playful, Molten Freddy is purely malicious. His voice lines in Pizzeria Simulator drip with sadistic glee. Together again, he laughs, celebrating what he perceives as a family reunion with the other animatronics, including William as Scraptrap and his daughter Elizabeth as Scrap Baby. "Time for your controlled shock," warns, mocking the player. His laughter echoes through the vents as he approaches, a sound that carries all the manic energy of Funtime Freddy, but without any pretense of entertainment or purpose beyond causing pain. Molten Freddy's personality shift makes sense when you remember the remnant injection. If Funtime Freddy contained pieces of the murdered children's spirits, those spirits would still be confused, still be angry, still be seeking vengeance against adults they perceived as threats. But now, after years of additional trauma, after being scooped and worn as a skin suit, and ejected from Enard and left to crawl through sewers as a degraded mass of spare parts, any remaining humanity would have been ground away, leaving only rage and the desire to hurt. Henry Emily's plan in Pizzeria Simulator specifically targeted Molten Freddy, along with the other animatronics, using audio lures to draw him into the building before setting it ablaze. The fire was meant to superheat the remnant, breaking its supernatural properties, and finally releasing the spirits trapped within. Whether this worked, whether Gabriel and the other children's fractured spirits finally found peace when Molten Freddy burned, remains somewhat ambiguous. But Henry's speech during the fire, addressing all the trapped souls, suggests his belief that the flames would indeed grant them release. Funtime Freddy and his evolution into Molten Freddy represents a dark turning point in the franchise's exploration of what Freddy Fazbear could be. He wasn't possessed by accident, through tragedy and murder. He was deliberately designed to be dangerous, built with kidnapping and killing as core functions, and then made even worse by injection with supernatural remnant that gave him consciousness without humanity. He was entertainment twisted into weaponry, technology deployed for atrocity, and proof that William Afton's obsessions had transformed the cheerful mascot into an instrument of deliberate evil. And Bon-Bon, the tiny hand puppet companion, serves as a disturbing reminder that even the smallest, most innocent-seeming elements in this franchise can hide terrible purposes. A puppet meant to calm Freddy down, to keep him manageable, but also equipped with tracking systems and capable of independent attack. A partner in predation dressed up as a cute accessory. Together, Funtime Freddy and Bon-Bon showed us that the horror of Five Nights at Freddy's wasn't just about ghosts in machines or accidents with spring-lock suits. It was also about deliberate design, about technology created specifically to harm children, and about how William Afton's twisted genius could take the concept of a friendly bear entertainer and rebuild it into something nightmarish. Rockstar Freddy and the Pizzeria Simulator variants, a new stage for old sins. After the horrors of Sister Location and the revelations about William Afton's technological atrocities, the franchise might have seemed like it had explored every possible variation on the Freddy concept. But Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator introduced a new cast of performers, the Rockstar animatronics, and with them came Rockstar Freddy, a version of the bear that combined elements from throughout the franchise's history into a new form specifically designed for Henry Emily's final trap. Rockstar Freddy's appearance is immediately striking, blending the aesthetic of multiple previous Freddys into a single cohesive design. His overall look resembles toy Freddy's rounded, child-friendly proportions, but with details that call back to other iterations. His head features a distinctive lower jaw connected to the upper skull by visible metal rods, similar to the separated jaw of Nightmare Freddy or the damaged structure of Withered Freddy, though in Rockstar Freddy's case, this seems to be an intentional design choice rather than damage. His coloring is a deep brown, closer to the original Freddy's shade than toy Freddy's brighter orange-brown. He has rosy red cheeks, a feature borrowed from the toy animatronics that gives him a more cartoonish, approachable appearance. His top hat and bow tie are a vibrant purple with a metallic sheen, reminiscent of Fredbear's purple accessories and Funtime Freddy's purple accents. On his tan-colored chest, prominently displayed, is a golden star, the signature marking that identifies him as part of the Rockstar line. Rockstar Freddy's microphone is purple to match his accessories and is mounted on a stand that he holds rather than being a handheld prop. His eyes are blue with white sclera, giving him a more lifelike appearance than some earlier models. Red paint adorns his kneecaps, another distinctive touch. Overall, he looks polished, professional, like a mascot designed for a legitimate entertainment venue rather than a haunted pizzeria. In the context of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator story, Rockstar Freddy is one of several animatronics that can be purchased for the player's restaurant. He's classified as a heavy animatronic in very good condition, available from the Smile and Servos Incolchoi catalog for $2,000. His item description presents him as a legitimate entertainment option, with no mention of the dark history that shadows every Freddy animatronic. But of course, this being a Five Nights at Freddy's game, Rockstar Freddy isn't quite what he appears. While he functions as a performer during the day, at night he becomes another threat that the player must manage while trying to complete tasks in their office. His specific gimmick is both unique and oddly fitting for the franchise's dark humor. Rockstar Freddy has a coin slot, and he demands payment. When Rockstar Freddy activates during the night, he remains in the office rather than approaching from outside like most animatronics. He speaks in a stilted, robotic voice that's clearly modeled after automated carnival attractions, fortune tellers, and prize machines, giving his demands an uncanny quality. "Please deposit 5 coins, he requests, his voice friendly but with an artificial quality that makes the demand unsettling. If the player has 5 Faz coins, the in-game currency, they can pay Rockstar Freddy, satisfying him and causing him to deactivate for the night. But if they don't have enough coins, or if they refuse to pay, Rockstar Freddy becomes aggressive. There's an alternative solution though. Turning up the office's heat causes Rockstar Freddy to malfunction, his systems overheating until he shuts down. But if neither payment nor heat solves the problem, Rockstar Freddy attacks, his jump scare showing him lurching forward with his mouth open, revealing the mechanical interior. This mechanic, while seemingly arbitrary, actually touches on themes that run through the franchise. Fazbear Entertainment has always been about money, about cutting corners and prioritizing profit over safety. Rockstar Freddy, with his coin-operated aggression, embodies this commercial greed in a more literal way than previous animatronics. He's a performer, yes, but he's also a machine that demands payment, that won't function without being fed currency. A dark joke about how the entire franchise has always been driven by financial motivations, even as children died and spirits were trapped. The Rockstar animatronics as a whole represent the legitimate side of Fazbear Entertainment, the version of the company that might have existed if tragedies hadn't consistently undermined it. They're professional, well-designed, seemingly safe, but they're also part of Henry Emily's trap in Pizzeria Simulator, brought together in one location so they can all be destroyed simultaneously in the fire that ends the game. While Rockstar Freddy himself doesn't have the same depth of lore or tragic backstory as versions like the original Gabriel-possessed Freddy or the deliberately weaponized Funtime Freddy, his existence serves an important purpose in the narrative. He shows that the Freddy Fazbear brand continued evolving, that new versions kept being created even as old tragedies went unaddressed. He's a symbol of the company's inability to truly move past its dark history, always creating new mascots and new restaurants, while the ghosts of the past literally haunted the previous locations. In Ultimate Custom Night, Rockstar Freddy appears again, with the same mechanic, demanding Faz coins and becoming aggressive if not paid or overheated. His presence in that game, which is suggested to be a purgatory, or hell created for William Afton by the vengeful spirit of Cassidy, indicates that even this relatively benign version of Freddy has become part of the punishment. Every iteration of the character, from the innocent original to the deliberately evil Funtime to this commercial coin-operated variant, has been pulled into the orbit of the franchise's sins and is now used as an instrument of torment. Other variants appearing in Pizzeria Simulator include Lefty, a black bear animatronic with a red top hat and bow tie, who is actually a shell built by Henry to capture and contain the puppet, Charlotte Emily's possessed form. Lefty's name is both a description, he's missing his right eye, and a play on the phrase lure, encapsulate, fuse, transport, extract, abbreviated as LEFTE, which describes his function in Henry's plan. While not a direct Freddy variant, Lefty's connection to the bear aesthetic and his role in the Pizzeria Simulator endgame make him part of this family of animatronics. He represents Henry's attempt to finally end the tragedy, to capture his daughter's spirit and give her the release she's been denied. It's fitting that this would involve a bear-like animatronic, keeping the Freddy form at the center of both the franchise's beginning with Fredbear and its ending with Lefty's role in the final fire. Rockstar Freddy and the Pizzeria Simulator variants show us the franchise in its late stages, still creating new versions of old characters, still trying to make the concept work even as it crumbles under the weight of accumulated tragedies. They're polished, professional, and utterly doomed, destined to burn along with everyone else when Henry springs his trap and ends the cycle of death and possession that has defined Fazbear Entertainment from the beginning. Glamrock Freddy, the hero we never expected. Everything we've seen about Freddy Fazbear up to this point has painted him as, at best, a tragic figure, a vessel for a murdered child's confused spirit, or at worst, a deliberately designed weapon for harming children. Even in his more benign appearances, Freddy has been associated with horror, with danger, with the darkness that lurks beneath family entertainment. Which is why Glamrock Freddy, appearing in Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, represents such a shocking departure from everything the character has been before. Glamrock Freddy is the first version of the character who actively, genuinely helps the player. Not through confusion, not because he's being manipulated, but because he chooses to, because something in his programming or his consciousness or his very being has decided that protecting a child is more important than following the corrupted commands that drive his fellow animatronics. His design reflects a new era for the franchise. Set in the 2030s, Security Breach takes place in Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex, a massive entertainment complex built on top of the ruins of the old Freddy Fazbear's pizza locations. Everything about the Pizzaplex is bigger, brighter, more technologically advanced. The animatronics are called Glamrocks, inspired by 1970s and 80s rock aesthetics, and they're sleek, modern, and far more sophisticated than any previous generation. Glamrock Freddy's color scheme is unique among Freddy's. A bright orange bear that stands out immediately. His design has a Rockstar flair that's hard to miss. He wears a top hat, but it's decorated with a blue stripe that gives it a more modern, stylish look. His bow tie is black, and there's blue lightning bolt face paint under his left eye, and a similar blue stripe across his lower jaw. On his chest, a blue lightning bolt matches his face paint. His body shows the technological advancement of his era. Instead of a simple fur suit over an endoskeleton, Glamrock Freddy has segmented plates and panels that give him a more armored appearance. Red shoulder pads add to the rock aesthetic, and he has spiked wristbands and red leg warmers. One of his ears has a red earring. It's a look that's simultaneously retro and futuristic, calling back to the aesthetics of the past while clearly being more advanced than any previous Freddy model. But his most distinctive feature, the one that plays a crucial role in Security Breach's gameplay, is his chest cavity. Glamrock Freddy has a compartment in his torso, officially described as a birthday cake hatch, for storing oversized party items and piñatas. But in Security Breach, this compartment becomes a hiding place for Gregory, the child protagonist, allowing him to escape detection by other animatronics and security systems, while Freddy carries him through the Pizzaplex. The game begins with Freddy performing on stage during a show, but something goes wrong. He collapses mid-performance, experiencing what seems like a system malfunction. When he reboots, Gregory is hiding inside his chest cavity, having crawled in there while Freddy was offline. And from that moment, Freddy makes a choice. Instead of alerting security or the other animatronics, instead of following his presumed programming, he decides to help Gregory escape. This decision drives the entire game. Freddy becomes Gregory's protector, his transport, and his ally in navigating the dangerous Pizzaplex after hours. When other animatronics approach, Gregory hides inside Freddy's chest cavity, and the other robots don't question Freddy's presence, accepting him as one of them even as he harbors their target. When Gregory needs to reach areas where animatronics patrol, Freddy comes to recharge stations, allowing Gregory to summon him with a watch device and ride inside him to safety. Freddy's personality in Security Breach is gentle, caring, and genuinely concerned for Gregory's well-being. He speaks in a warm, reassuring voice provided by actor Kellen Goff, and his dialogue consistently emphasizes protection and safety. "You are Freddy," he says when Gregory first talks to him, confused about what he's found. "Are you here for the party?" And when he realizes Gregory's in danger, "I will help you. You can hide inside me. Stay quiet, and I will take you to the exit." His catchphrase, "Way to go, superstar," becomes a running motif in the game, an encouragement he offers Gregory after the child succeeds at various tasks. It's sincere, enthusiastic, and completely at odds with the menacing behavior of every previous Freddy. He worries when Gregory is in danger, apologizes when his systems malfunction or his battery runs low, and constantly reassures the child that they'll find a way to escape together. The question that haunts Security Breach's story is, why? Why is Glamrock Freddy different? The other animatronics, Glamrock Chica, Roxanne Wolf, and Montgomery Gator, have all been corrupted by Vanny, a follower of William Afton's digital consciousness, who's hacked into the Pizzaplex systems and turned the Glamrocks into hunters. But Freddy remains uncorrupted, helping Gregory instead of hunting him. The game suggests that when Freddy collapsed on stage at the beginning, he entered safe mode, a backup operating system that disconnected him from the main network. This safe mode appears to have protected him from the corruption that affected the other animatronics, leaving his original protective programming intact. But there's more to consider than just a technical explanation. Within the community, a popular theory has emerged suggesting that Glamrock Freddy might be possessed by Michael Afton's spirit. Michael, the older brother who caused the bite of 83 and spent the rest of his life trying to make amends, seeking out his father, and eventually working with Henry to end the cycle of tragedy, died in the fire at the end of Pizzeria Simulator. According to this interpretation, his soul might have found its way into Glamrock Freddy, either through Remnant or through some other supernatural means, giving the animatronic genuine protective instincts toward children as Michael's way of finally fulfilling his desire for redemption. Those who support this reading point to several pieces of evidence. Glamrock Freddy's blue eyes, which match Michael's eye color in various depictions, and his personality, which mirrors Michael's protective nature toward his sister Elizabeth, and his later attempts to save the murdered children's spirits. The stomach hatch where Gregory hides could even be interpreted as a symbolic reference to Michael's own body being used as a suit by Ennard, now transformed into a space where he protects rather than being violated. Alternative interpretations suggest the spirit might be that of the crying child, Michael's younger brother, finally given a chance to help and protect, rather than being the victim who needs saving. The specific mention of Glamrock Bonnie in the game and the clear evidence that Freddy misses him could reference the bond between the crying child and his Fredbear plush, transferred here to a friendship between Freddy and Bonnie. It's worth noting that the game itself doesn't explicitly confirm any possession. Glamrock Freddy's heroism might simply be the result of his safe mode protecting him from corruption, his advanced AI allowing for more complex decision-making, or a combination of factors that make him unique among the animatronics. The possession theories, while compelling and supported by thematic connections, remain interpretations of the available evidence rather than confirmed canon. What we can say with certainty is that Glamrock Freddy's heroism defines his character, regardless of the explanation behind it. Throughout the game, Gregory can collect parts from decommissioned animatronics and upgrade Freddy with new capabilities. After defeating Glamrock Chica, Freddy can be equipped with her voice box, allowing him to use voice commands to open certain doors. After deactivating Roxanne Wolf, he can receive her eyes, giving him enhanced vision that lets him see through walls and spot invisible enemies. And after stopping Montgomery Gator, he gains Monty's claw hands, allowing him to break through gates and access restricted areas. Each upgrade changes Freddy's appearance. The voice box replacement turns his bow tie purple. Roxy's eyes make his own eyes glow yellow instead of blue. Monty's claws turn his hands purple with green fingers and give him sharp black claws. These modifications make him more capable, but also more visibly damaged. A hero who's literally being rebuilt from the remains of those he's had to defeat to protect Gregory. In the game's primary ending, the Princess Quest ending, which appears to be the canonical conclusion based on evidence in the Ruin DLC, Freddy and Gregory confront Vanny in Faza Blast, a laser tag arena. Staff bots, corrupted by Vanny's control, attack and disassemble Freddy, tearing him apart. Gregory manages to grab Freddy's head before the body is completely destroyed, and they escape the Pizzaplex together, Gregory carrying Freddy's still conscious head as they leave the burning complex behind. This ending is both tragic and oddly hopeful. Freddy has been destroyed protecting Gregory, his body torn apart, but his consciousness remains in his head, still speaking, still encouraging, still the same protective figure he's been throughout the night. Gregory saved what he could of his friend, unwilling to leave him behind even in pieces. The Ruin DLC, set some time after Security Breach, shows us the fate of Glamrock Freddy's body. A girl named Cassie, exploring the now derelict Pizzaplex searching for Gregory, encounters a headless Freddy in the Phaser Blast area. This prototype Freddy, or Ruined Freddy as fans call him, has no head, having been removed by Gregory. But the body is still active, still moving, driven by low battery power and whatever programming remains. Without his head, without his consciousness and personality, the body has become dangerous, chasing Cassie through the arena and attacking with his chest hatch, which now operates like a mouth, snapping at her with spiked mechanical jaws. It's a horrifying transformation. Freddy's heroic body turned into a mindless threat, simply because its battery is too low and its AI is gone. Even in pieces, even without his core personality, the Freddy body continues to function and pose a danger. A sobering reminder that benevolence in this franchise is always one malfunction away from horror. The existence of prototype markings on this body raises questions about whether this is even the same Glamrock Freddy from Security Breach, or if it's a backup model that Gregory and Freddy's head never encountered. But regardless of the specific identity, the image of a headless Freddy shambling through the ruins, using his chest cavity as a makeshift mouth to attack, provides a tragic bookend to his story in Security Breach. Glamrock Freddy stands as perhaps the most significant departure in Freddy's character across the entire franchise. For the first time, a version of Freddy is unambiguously good, genuinely heroic, choosing to help and protect, even when it costs him everything. He represents what Freddy could be if the tragedies had never happened, if the animatronics had been allowed to simply be entertainers and guardians, if William Afton had never turned them into weapons and tombs. He's proof that the Freddy Fazbear character, at its core, has potential for good. The design was always meant to be friendly, to bring joy to children, to be a protector at birthday parties and celebrations. Glamrock Freddy achieves that original vision, and in doing so, he becomes something entirely unique in the franchise. A Freddy we can genuinely root for, a mechanical bear who earns his place as a hero rather than merely being a victim or a villain. The legacy of Freddy Fazbear, more than just a bear in a hat. We've traveled through decades of Freddy's existence, from the original brown bear possessed by Gabriel's confused spirit to the golden phantom that defied physics and death itself, from the nightmare creature emerging from experiments in terror to the white and purple weapon designed to steal children, from the coin-operated Rockstar to the genuinely heroic Glamrock who carried a child to safety in his chest cavity. Each iteration has shown us different facets of what this character means, what he represents in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. Freddy Fazbear is, at his most basic level, a mascot. He's the face of Fazbear Entertainment, the character whose name appears on restaurants and merchandise, the iconic image that players immediately associate with the franchise. His brown fur, black top hat, and bow tie have become instantly recognizable symbols in gaming culture, marking him as one of the medium's most iconic horror characters, despite the fact that his design is deliberately simple and child-friendly. But what makes Freddy such an enduring and fascinating character is the journey from that simple mascot role into everything else he becomes. He's a murdered child's prison, metal and wire twisted into a tomb. He's a malevolent spirit that can manifest wherever and whenever it chooses, unbound by physical laws. He's a manifestation of fear given form through hallucinogenic manipulation. He's a carefully engineered weapon wearing the disguise of an entertainer. He's a coin-operated attraction that demands payment before it will cease being a threat. And ultimately, in at least one iteration, he's a genuinely protective guardian who chooses heroism over programming. The bear has become a symbol for the entire franchise's central theme, the corruption of innocence. Freddy Fazbear was designed to bring joy to children, to be a friendly face at birthday parties, to sing songs and create happy memories. But in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, that innocent purpose becomes perverted again and again. The cheerful entertainer is stuffed with a murdered child's corpse. The friendly bear is used as a lure by a serial killer. The technological marvel is programmed to kidnap. Even the most advanced and heroic version loses his body protecting a child from threats that exist because adults corrupted the very entertainment complex he was built to help run. Freddy's evolution across the games also reflects the franchise's own growth and expansion. The first games, Freddy was simple, a straightforward threat that lurked in the darkness and followed predictable patterns. As the series added complexity, introducing possession, remnant, experimentation, and technology, Freddy evolved too, taking on new forms that explored different aspects of the horror. The various Freddys also represent different approaches to fear. The original is scary through implication, the suggestion of a corpse inside, and the menace of being slowly hunted. Withered Freddy is scary through decay, showing us what happens when friendly things fall apart. Toy Freddy is scary through corruption, taking something new and shiny and making it dangerous. Golden Freddy is scary through the supernatural, defying logic and crashing reality. Shadow Freddy is scary through mystery, a purple ghost whose motives remain unclear. Nightmare Freddy is scary through exaggeration, fear made manifest and multiplied. Funtime Freddy is scary through design, horror deliberately engineered. Rockstar Freddy is scary through commercialization, danger that demands payment. And Glamrock Freddy is scary, at least at first, because he shouldn't be there at all, a helpful character in a franchise built on betrayal and threat. Beyond his role in the games, Freddy Fazbear has achieved broader cultural impact. He appears in numerous fan works, from artwork to fan games, to elaborate theories about his nature and purpose. The character has been analyzed from every possible angle, his every appearance scrutinized for lore implications, his every design choice examined for hidden meanings. The 2023 Five Nights at Freddy's movie brought Freddy to an even wider audience, with the animatronic bear appearing on the big screen and introducing countless new viewers to the franchise. In the film, Freddy and the other animatronics are presented as genuinely sympathetic, murdered children trapped in metal bodies and manipulated by William Afton's influence. It's a more straightforward interpretation than the game's complicated lore, but it captures the essential tragedy of the character. Freddy should be bringing joy, but instead, he's been turned into something dangerous through forces beyond his control. Looking at Freddy across all his appearances, certain patterns emerge. He's almost always the leader, the center figure, the bear who stands at the middle of the stage with the others positioned around him. Even when he's not the most aggressive threat, like in the first game where Bonnie and Chica are far more active, Freddy maintains a position of importance through his iconic status and his role as the franchise mascot. He's also often associated with sound. His music box theme in the first game, playing in the darkness when power fails. His footsteps in the kitchen. His laughs when he moves in various games. The mechanical whirring of his systems. Even his absence of sound can be meaningful. Those moments when you realize Freddy has disappeared from the cameras and must be approaching unseen. Sound design has always been crucial to making Freddy frightening, using audio cues to build tension, even when visual threats come from other characters. The various Freddys also showcase the franchise's approach to horror through repetition and variation. By taking the same basic character design, a bear in a top hat, and presenting it in radically different contexts with different behaviors and different implications, the games create a sense of familiarity twisted into unfamiliarity. You know what Freddy looks like, but you don't know which Freddy you're dealing with or what rules apply to this particular version. That uncertainty, that sense that even familiar things can't be trusted, is at the heart of Five Nights at Freddy's horror. Freddy's role as the face of the franchise also means he bears the burden of representing Fazbear Entertainment itself. When we see Freddy, we think of the restaurants, the cover-ups, the bodies hidden in suits, the spring-lock failures, the experiments, the possessions, all of it. He's become inseparable from the company's crimes, his friendly image forever tainted by association with tragedy and horror. No amount of rebranding, no new designs or fresh starts can fully separate Freddy from the darkness that has defined his existence. And yet, Glamrock Freddy proves that redemption is possible, that even a character this associated with horror can find heroism. His choice to help Gregory, his genuine care and protection, his willingness to sacrifice his own body to keep a child safe. These things matter. They don't erase the past. don't undo the tragedies, but they show that the core concept, a friendly bear who wants to help children, can still shine through if given the chance. As the franchise continues, new versions of Freddy will surely appear. Five Nights at Freddy's shows no signs of stopping, with new games, new movies, new books all expanding the universe. Each new iteration will add to Freddy's legacy, showing new facets of the character or recontextualizing old ones. But at the center, he'll remain what he's always been, a bear in a top hat, trying to entertain children, even as the universe around him continually corrupts that simple, innocent purpose into something darker. Freddy Fazbear is more than just a character in a horror game. He's a symbol of corruption, a victim of circumstance, a weapon of deliberate design, a ghost seeking vengeance, a hero choosing protection, and above all, a reminder that innocence, once corrupted, can never be fully restored, but it can perhaps be redeemed, one act of heroism at a time, one child saved, one night survived, one moment of choosing to be better than the programming or the possession or the past would dictate. That's the legacy of Freddy Fazbear, not just the jump scares or the horror, but the journey from innocent entertainer to corrupted prison, to deliberate weapon to finally, in at least one timeline, genuine protector. The bear in the top hat has worn many faces across this franchise, but perhaps the most important one is the most recent. The face of a hero who proves that even in a universe built on tragedy and horror, choice still matters, and protecting the innocent is still worth everything. Thank you for joining me through this complete exploration of Freddy Fazbear's lore, through the shadows and song, through possession and programming, through nightmares and redemption. If you enjoyed this journey through the many faces of the franchise's most iconic character, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the intricate world of Five Nights at Freddy's. And let me know in the comments, which version of Freddy resonates most with you? Is it the tragic original imprisoned spirit of Gabriel, the supernatural terror of Golden Freddy, the deliberately evil design of Funtime Freddy, or perhaps the unexpected heroism of Glamrock Freddy? Proof that even in this dark universe, goodness can still emerge. Until next time, sleep well, and remember, whether he's singing on stage or lurking in darkness, Freddy Fazbear remains the face of a franchise that continues to captivate and terrify, one mechanical bear at a time.